Hello and a very warm welcome back to my channel. Richard Tang, CEO of Zen Internet, and today in the hot seat I'm delighted to welcome Jeremy Chelot, who is CEO of both Netomnia and YouFibre. Very warm welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you for having me.
So before we get into the details of Netomnia and YouFibre, you were actually right there at the beginning of Community Fibre, and you were CEO of Community Fibre, and you've told me the story. Really interesting. Could you share it now for everyone?
Yeah, no problem. So back at the end of 2013, so I was still working for 3UK, so the mobile operator, and as you know, 3UK is quite an interesting story because they went from they didn't really exist to now having 10 million subscribers, and now with merging with Vodafone, actually, they are most likely going to be the largest mobile operator in the UK. So I've got kind of a DNA of those companies that are disruptive. So at the end of 2013, decided, okay, you know what, going to leave and I want to do my own stuff. So left 2014, spent my time reading books, trying to figure out what to do. And at the end of 2014, I met that guy called Callum Dick, who had founded Community Fibre back in 2010. And in 2013, he had basically a stab at passing 342 homes at the heart of Westminster. So really a tiny network. And so he was onto something, but was not 100% sure exactly how to make it work, and I had lots of issues. At the time, I was not sure what to do, but I thought, okay, it's got some problems. I've got some solutions. Might be able to make some money. It turns out money was a bit of a problem because it was quite difficult. Building a fiber network cost a lot. So we did a deal. It's okay. You know what? I fix all your problems, and I become CEO. And I get some shares in the company. So, this is exactly what happened. So at the end of 2015, most problems were fixed. We had managed to raise some capital, so £3 million from high net worth individual, and really the story started there. Then I carry on basically for 5 years as the CEO of Community Fibre, raised about £100 million through several rounds. And as you know, now Community Fibre is the largest fibre network in London.
Fantastic. And then you left Community Fibre and decided to set up, actually not just one company, Netomnia, but YouFibre as well. So tell me a bit about Netomnia and YouFibre.
Yeah, so I thought I had done what I wanted to do in London, because clearly there was a clear need to roll out fibre in the UK and in London. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think Openreach or Virgin Media would be rolling out fibre so fast if it was not for the Alt-net, because we did basically force the accelerations of their rollout. So, but I thought after basically working for so long within the M25 and within London, I thought the UK is bigger than the M25 in London, and I thought that what I had done basically in London could be replicated across the whole of the UK. Obviously, it was quite difficult to do that with Community Fibre, because it's really basically a company which is focused within the M25 in London. So the best way to do that was to do it from the outside. So left Community Fibre and set up basically two companies. So Netomnia and YouFibre. Netomnia being the equivalent of a company like CityFibre or Openreach. So it's a wholesale platform which we build a brand new fiber network across the UK. And at the time, and maybe still today, I was still kind of sitting on the fence, trying to work out whether the right business model is more like CityFibre, only wholesale, no control of what's happening at the retail level, or is the right model a Virgin Media model, very little wholesale, vertically integrated, or is the answer somewhere in the middle, like with BT and Openreach? So I thought, okay, let's sit on the fence. Let's have basically two companies. So one company for wholesale called Netomnia, and one company called YouFibre, which is a retail internet service provider, which basically guarantee some level of monetization of the asset and give basically the ability for those two companies to go together.
And you're the sixth largest infrastructure, FTTP infrastructure in the UK now, I believe. So
That is correct.
So let's have some stats. How many premises have you passed, and who are the top five? Who are you competing against?
Correct. So the number one obviously in the UK is Openreach, with I think now about 11 million FTTP premises ready for service. The number two, depending on if you count FTTP or if you count with DOCSIS, is between CityFibre and Virgin Media. So if you look at large size of the network, I believe that Virgin Media is number two. Number three being CityFibre. The number four is, I believe, now Community Fibre, so which is quite interesting because now HyperOptic went from being the fourth to being the fifth. HyperOptic now is the fifth network with about 900,000 premises ready for service, and we are number six with now 600,000 premises ready for service across the UK. So the space of 3 years, we went from having nothing to now being the sixth largest network and the fourth largest Alt-net in the UK, and growing like crazy. So we are building at the moment about 50,000 premises ready for service every month, which I believe is might be the third or fourth fastest build currently in the UK.
Wow, very impressive. How much does all that cost?
It costs a lot. Cost a lot, but
I suppose, how much did it cost, and who's paid for it all?
That's correct.
So let's talk a bit about funding, actually.
Okay, so over the last 3 years, we raised £648 million. So across 5 fundraisers. The first two were equity rounds, where we raised about £50 million. The third one was a debt round for £73 million. After that, we've been very lucky that we've managed to convince DigitalBridge to invest in us. And as part of that, my existing investor followed on, and that was a round of about $295 million. And the last one was in the middle of Silicon Valley Bank going bust and Credit Suisse being bought by UBS. We managed to close a debt round of £230 million with a club of six larger banks. So that's what we've raised to get to this 600,000 premises ready for service. To date, we spent in the region of £300 million. So spent quite a bit of money, but not as much as many of our competitors. We've been relatively efficient. Don't have a fancy office like this one.
What are you saying?
And it's been good, but very expensive, and but we've been very successful at raising that. So it's about a fundraise close basically every 6 months since the beginning of the company. So we've been very busy raising money, but also turning that capital into a meaningful asset and a strong customer base.
Yeah, and I mean, I really feel that, I guess going back a couple of years, it felt like a gold rush. Everyone's going all guns blazing, let's build as fast as we can. This year, with the interest rates going up, people are feeling the pressure a bit. I know obviously a big chunk of your fundings come from debt. Your interest payments must have gone up quite a bit, probably more than you expected when you did your initial business plan. So I mean, how's it feeling for you?
It's been more difficult to raise capital, but it's not been. If anything, I think it's a good thing, because at some point I think you need the market to be rational, and I think you need to go. And therefore, what really happened is the bar got a lot higher than it used to be. But if you have a great business, having a higher bar is not frightening. I think it's a good thing, as I said. You will see that most likely quite a few of companies, quite a few altnets will struggle to raise some additional capital. and most likely we'll have to figure out basically how to consolidate, to merge, to become meaningful in that market. The good news for us is with the capital, even if we were to not raise any additional capital, we'll go well past the million premises ready for service. We'll be EBITDA positive and cash flow positive if we were to stop at 1 million with a very low take-up. I think our cash flow positive with the level on 1 million premises ready for service is in the region of 13 to 15%. So it doesn't require actually to get a lot of customers on the network to be cash flow positive. And it's been because we've been managing very, very carefully our capital, which has been the key driver since the beginning. So as the founder and the CEO and the group of founders have actually put also their own money in that company since the beginning. We've been very focused on managing capital, and that's something that is in our DNA. So we've always believed that you need to be very efficient because the war and the fight that is coming is going to be intense, and therefore you need to be as well equipped as possible for that fight. And the worst you could do is to have a big hole basically to fill while fighting it. So that's why we've been very focused.
Well, let's talk about the fight for customers, because of course it's all, and look, it's hugely impressive to build a network of that scale in such a short amount of time, but you've got to fill it up with customers. You've got to fill it up with paying customers. And I know that you're quite open about sharing the number of customers on your network. So how many customers do you have at the moment?
Yes, so we've got more than 45,000 customers. We're expecting to get to 50,000 by the end of this month, early September. So we are in a very good place with our oldest cohort, which now are kind of a bit more than 2.5 years old. I think they are around 28% on them. Because we've been so capital efficient, the level of take-up that we expect on that network I would expect it to be reasonable. So for us, we are aiming in the region of 33% take-up. But as I say, we are cash flow positive at 13 to 15% take-up. So for us, after that, it's just fantastic, because every percentage point that we get basically we are in a very good place. So we've been, I mean, getting customers is hard. It's not something easy, but we've been fortunate that now with 50,000 customers, we are also getting into a reasonable amount. I think there is the magic number of 100,000 that we want to reach as quickly as possible, which we think will be there in the first half of next year, which then will put us basically in a very good place. And I mean, for us, it's simple: is provide a service which is really, really fast, and we are going to launch something quite fun basically by the end of this month with 8 gigabit basically a residential product. And we've always tried to make sure that it's as affordable as possible, and more importantly, customer service is kind of within our DNA. So our Trustpilot is 4.9. When I was at Community Fibre, it was also 4.9. It's really something that for us, it's well and good to acquire a customer, but what you really want to do is to keep them. And but yeah, the fight is intense. Luckily, there has been a lot of price hikes, which did. Don't know if it's luckily, but luckily for us, at least not for the people who suffer from it. But it means that there is quite a lot of people want to change, want to find basically something which is faster, something that might be more affordable or a better customer service. So we've been doing okay.
Great to hear. And you know, you said that if you can fill up 13% of your network, you'll get cash flow positive. Mm-hmm. And that's quite surprising, because when I've spoken to other altnets, they talk about figures like 30%, 35%, 40% of their network needs to be filled up to make the business really go. Are you really that more? Why is it just you're that much more efficient than the other guys?
Yeah, so usually I get
You got a magic formula that they haven't got?
yes, I
Oh,
do.
there you go. Fantastic. There's the answer.
Yeah, I get asked that question relatively often. Obviously, as a CEO, usually the go-to answer is my team is fantastic. So I've got the best people. But every CEO will answer the question the same way: is they all have a great team and so on. I think that's why I tend to focus more on the numbers that we've achieved, because I think the numbers that we've achieved, they are objective. So I can't hide them. So that we are at 600,000, we are getting to 50,000 customers, but that we have only spent basically 300 million pounds to get there. I think in reality, I think I don't know. I think it's lots of small things that we do differently. And all those small things, basically, when you aggregate them together, basically makes it actually so much more efficient. And there is also the fact that we build it over less than 3 years. I think one of the biggest issues that most altnet have is it took them far too long to start scaling. And the problem is, while the cost of the infrastructure is expensive, the running of the company is also expensive. So if you achieve those numbers over double or triple the time of what we've done, you will have consumed a lot more cash basically to get there. And that's something that I think has been missed by quite a few altnet investors is the need for speed. Because otherwise you end up burning cash basically just in your office. And
You're on about our office again, aren't you?
No, but joke aside, I think our speed has been very, very important. The fact that this is the second time that I'm doing it, I've made a lot of mistakes at Community Fibre. I haven't made those mistakes again, and I think I benefit from that. And the team that I work with, it's also technically the second time for them, because most of the people who work with me were also in previous Alt-net before, whether from Community Fibre or GigaClear or some others. And therefore, we've all made a lot of mistakes. We all have a lot of scars. And therefore, it's really like Netomnia and YouFibre is okay. If you can press a button and reset, basically, and let's start from the beginning, this is how we'll do it. We still made a lot of mistakes again. So I think if I could press that button again, I will most likely press it, because I think there is a lot that we could change to be even better. But I think when you add those things, so a great team that is the second time that we are doing it with real passion and drive and hunger to succeed, with lots of small tweaks basically that we've been doing, and we've really been running that business still like a software company and a startup. So everything is about, okay, how do we automate? Let's not take any processes as for granted. Is there a better way to do it? If there isn't, go with it. But if there is, let's change it. And we've managed to scale that company very fast, which enabled us basically to just not burn basically cash on anything, but actually building this fantastic asset and getting customers. And I don't know, maybe I've got a wonderful partner as well. So and a great daughter. I don't know. They motivate me.
I'm sure that helps. I know the feeling, for sure. Let's talk about your future strategy, because at the moment, you've built this big network. You've got YouFibre as the sole route to market for that. Obviously, we had a chat before this interview about the possibility of Zen becoming a ISP partner. It was an initial chat with no commitments made. I need to obviously stress that point.
That's not what you said. No, I'm joking.
Right. So, but in terms of, I suppose, your strategy, is it to get, the big players, the TalkTalks, the Vodafones, the Zen, others, as ISP partners, or are you more thinking, look, I need to scale this network and this is going to get consolidated at some point, so yes, I need to build ISP partners, but that's less important. What's your feeling?
No, it's the reason why I created at the beginning those two companies is really to give basically two different strategies. And Netomnia's purpose and goal is to be a true wholesale platform and to have more tenants in it, and to be a real alternative to to what Openreach provides. This is why we use their BT exchanges. We use very similar equipment. We build in a very similar fashion to enable large companies like yourself or TalkTalk or Vodafone to easily basically integrate with us. And so that was built like that, and the purpose has not changed. I don't believe in waiting for consolidations or anything to happen. I think owning your destiny is quite important, and it's not been built for that. If anything, I would rather consolidate companies and get to the goal being the third network in the UK, which to a certain extent, I am closer to being the third network in the UK than any other Alt-net, including CityFibre, because
bold claims.
I am rolling out in Northern Ireland, I am rolling out in Wales, I am rolling out in Scotland, and I'm rolling out in England. I'm the only Alt-net in the UK that is covering the four countries, and that's as per design. So that was the goal. It's to really basically try to address the needs of all the countries. So I know that there are other islands and so on, but I have to draw a line somewhere. And so
Greg, if you're listening to this, the gauntlet's being thrown down.
You know me, Greg. And so yes, no, the goal is clearly to work with Zen, to work with Vodafone, and to work with TalkTalk, because I do believe that we can provide something compelling to all of you. I mean, at the end of the day, we are the only, we might be the only network of that size, of that scale, which is XGS-PON native. So from the start, we've deployed a 10 gigabit PON everywhere. We don't have a single GPON customer. We don't even use GPON. So from the start, we decided, okay, let's build it basically for something that actually would last. And I was one of the first in the UK doing XGS-PON. So I've been doing it since 2018. So for me, that's something that I've been pushing basically everybody, and that's been really in our DNA. So now trying to find basically the larger ISP to look at Netomnia, because now we've got scale. We've got an architecture which is easy to integrate because we are inside the exchanges, and because we've been so capital efficient commercially, where we can be very attractive. So the goal is really to convince basically you and others to join the network, not to wait for someone to consolidate.
Oh, okay. I mean, let's talk about consolidation, because it's such a hot topic. Everyone's saying that the altnets are going to consolidate. Could you share some of your views about how that might pan out, and who might merge with who might acquire who, when it might happen? I mean, like you say, it's you don't want to wait for it to happen, but you must have some thoughts about what are the possibilities, what are the most likely possibilities.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some of the interesting stats about the Alt-net, which I think are quite important to take into account when you talk about consolidation, is the fact that when you look at the top 10 Alt-net, so starting from CityFibre, Community Fibre, HyperOptic, Netomnia, kind of in the top 4, going down to company, for example, like Tube, for example, or that are more in the 150,000 type of mark. Even in that top 10. If you take the top 4 of that top 10, is 90% of the size of the footprint. So actually, the concentration of fiber infrastructure on the top 4 is quite impressive. Therefore, the consolidation should really be basically among those top 4s, because as soon as you put basically those top 4s together, you have a path to, by the end of next year, to have a third of the UK cover across only four networks, which is quite impressive, because when you look at the size of the Virgin Media footprint currently, which is about 16 million premises, across that top 4, you could reach at the end of next year and have anywhere between 9 to 10 million basically premises ready for service. This is massive. So there is this first conundrum, and obviously we all have very big sponsors and very, very good investors, and I think the big question is how basically to make it happen, which is relatively difficult. And on top of that, we all have a lot of funding, so we can actually carry on without doing too much. So when you don't have to do something, the default position tends to be don't do anything, just carry on. If it's not broken, just carry on, for us currently, we can just carry on with our plan. So that's the first dynamic to understand between those top four. So after that, basically, there are different categories. So you've got, for example, the rural player. When you take, for example, a GigaClear, a Fibrous, a TrueSpeed, and so on. So you've got the more urban player. When you take, for example, a Tube, a FNW, a Brisk, or some of them, which their footprint is significantly smaller by several orders of magnitude. And therefore, really for them is how to do basically something to try to get to a more meaningful scale, like basically the top four. And so there might be some opportunities there. Because at the end of the day, what you don't want is every 2 months, basically you consolidate and buy a company. It's a very inefficient way to consolidate. It has a lot of risk and it's very hard. What you want is almost basically companies to try to get to a million plus, and then basically have meaningful conversation that every time you do basically a consolidation, you add a meaningful amount of premises and a meaningful amount of customers. Because for us at the moment, we do 50,000 a month. If I were to consolidate with a company that has 100,000 or 150, I can do that in 3 months. Why doing it? It's because it's a lot more difficult. So I think that's some of the dynamics that are going to play out. And obviously there is who is going to run out of cash and when. Because the runway for everybody is not the same. While I know roughly when people are going to run out of cash, I don't think I want to talk too much about it. But it's I think all those things will play out. So running out of cash, size, and really understanding basically between our top four versus the rest, basically, because there is clearly basically a significant gap in term of size, whether it's on ready for service premises or customer, and that gap is increasing basically every month, and therefore it's going to be a very interesting chess game.
It's certainly going to be an interesting chess game for sure. I mean, one thing that is notable when you have a look at the YouFibre website is your prices are really aggressive. So for a gigabit service, it's £1 for the first 3 months, and then $29.99 a month, including VAT, which is really attractive as a price. And I guess my question is, are you setting that price? To what extent are you subsidizing that price to build volume on your network versus is that a price that you can sustain long term and actually pay for the business?
Yeah, so as I said, so when we were talking about cash flow positive, it's cash flow positive on the basis of this type of pricing. So yeah, it's completely sustainable, and it's sustainable if you've built actually your infrastructure with capital efficiency in mind. Because at the end of the day, the question is how do you achieve a meaningful return on your capital invested? And so when you look at that price and you look at a level of take-up versus capital, yes, it's not a problem. So that's why it's been designed like that. And we also believe that within the UK market, most of the price elasticity, or where people are kind of anywhere between 25 to 35 pounds. I think this is kind of the sweet spot where people are comfortable to pay. And there is also an issue, obviously, when you're a new brand, is there is a lot of brand inertia. You have to overcome trust. You have to give more reason for someone to come, and we don't have like then 20 years. So for us, we are not cash flow positive. We are using money from investors and banks to build our networks. So we need to make sure that we load those networks with customers as quickly as possible. Therefore, we have to be attractive. But the pricing that we have here are completely sustainable. So our entire business plan is based on that, and therefore we are comfortable. We're comfortable with it.
Excellent. You did an interview a few weeks ago with Insider Media, and I think you said that you've got. And this is back to the question of consolidation. There's these 8 companies. They've got 8 CEOs. They only need 1 CEO. As and when that happens, whenever, will you be the one CEO?
Of course.
Do you think? Oh, there you go. Answers that question. Moving swiftly on.
Don't tell Greg again.
Won't tell Greg. Overbuild. Let's talk about Overbuild. And I think, I mean, you told me before this interview that within the Alt-net community, and I think everyone says this, it's almost a cardinal sin to overbuild each other. But then you've got VMO2, you've got Openreach, who are sort of want to overbuild everybody. What's your view of overbuild? I guess from a Netomnia point of view, but also when you look at the whole UK point of view, overbuild, because of course, as soon as you overbuild, then you're duplicating investment and you're reducing value for the investors.
Yeah, so yeah, it is a cardinal sin, and I hate overbuild like so much. For me, it's every time I see something, it's just I jump in the air. And I guess when we started Netomnia back in 2020, the first thesis that we had is, okay, let's not overbuild any Alt-net, and let's not overbuild Virgin Media. Let's just go after Openreach FTTC, because that's what makes the most sense. This is why we started in a town called Peterlee. So in the Northeast, and you wouldn't believe how much time I spend in Peterlee. So every week I was in Peterlee. I was in the BT exchange there, and I enjoyed that town so much. And I still have people from Peterlee that I talk to, and some of my customers, and we identify, and that was interesting because somehow Virgin Media had completely ignored the county of Durham. Don't know why. Somehow they didn't like it. So you could find Durham, for example, Peterlee, Spennymoor, Trimdon, plenty of areas there. So we started there, and we looked at the UK map, and we said, okay, there are plenty of other areas like that. So then after that, we went, for example, to build in Barrow and Furness. And so we went also to Canterbury. We went to Boston, Spalding, and Kings Lynn, and we also went to Stroud and to other places. And when we carry on doing that, at some point we realized that because we are rolling out so fast, that strategy is good, but if you want to be able to roll out 50,000 a month, that strategy doesn't work. Because unfortunately, you have to spend your time basically avoiding Virgin footprint, and it's just, at some point, it's counterproductive. So either you need to commit to never do it, and in that case, you can't reach basically that level of speed, and it's a lot more difficult to get scale, or you have to commit, you know what, if there is Virgin Media in some of this area, let's go for it. What can happen? And so we try to overbuild Virgin Media and their cable network. And as you know, most people complain about the quality of Virgin Media, so which is a good thing. So when we went there and we started overbuilding Virgin Media, we realized that Virgin Media had done something amazing. They had managed to convince people that there is a need for speed, because that's one of the key reasons why people move onto the Virgin Media network, is the promise of getting much higher speed on the cable network. They've also managed to convince people that they should be paying less for it, because they are overcharged. There is a lot of complaints, and joke aside, it's quite interesting because I was trying to understand how to churn from the Virgin Media network. That's fantastic. You can't even send an email to them. They don't take emails to do any churn, which is quite funny. But anyway, so we realized that when we overbuild Virgin Media, it's actually a lot easier to sell against Virgin Media than BT, because some BT customers are very, very loyal. They've been with BT for decades and they will not move. Whereas customers that have been on Virgin Media, they've moved already once. So why not more? Because they had that leap of faith. So we realized that overbuilding Virgin Media was not a problem. So while we would rather not to, because why duplicated investment like what you were saying? If you want to actually have a meaningful footprint and a meaningful speed, it's very hard to avoid it. Against Alt-net, many times actually we stop our build in areas because say, you know what, there is another Alt-net. We are not here to prevent basically consolidation to happen and destroy basically capital. So we always stay away from that when we detect it. But competing against Openreach and Virgin Media is fair game. At the end of the day, they are rolling out fiber because we do. So Openreach had a stab at it, I think in 2012 or 2013. Say, you know what? Why are we doing it? FTTC is fantastic. We've got G-Fast. Why do we need anything else? And the reason is because we exist. And Virgin Media was the same. When they started their Lightning project, it was let's put DOCSIS everywhere and let's do more of it. Right in the middle of the project, oh shit, let's move to fiber. And this is what Overbuild seems counterintuitive from us, even against Virgin Media and Openreach. At the end of the day, people in the UK have to remember that the reason why Openreach now has 11 million basically premises with FTTP, and Virgin Media has committed so much capital to do that, it's not because they want to do it. It's because they need to do it, and they need to do it because of us.
I certainly agree with that. I mean, if you look at Openreach's targets for building full fibre, as you say, early days, there was a spurt of enthusiasm. It died down a bit. Then it was 10 million, then it was 15 million, then it was 20, then it was 25. Actually, it's a good example of free market competition doing its thing for the good of everyone. What about BDUK areas? Is that part of your strategy to bid for those?
Can I be controversial?
Yeah. Well, please do. I mean, the more controversial, the better, I would say.
So I mean, some company using BDUK, they might say, Jeremy, you can't say that, and because there are some companies that have been relatively successful with BDUK. So you take Fibrous, I think, is the prime example of doing something fantastic with government funding, especially in Northern Ireland and in other part of England now. But in reality, for me, what I believe is gap fundings should be about understanding where the gaps are. You cannot know ahead where the gaps are going to be. At the moment, we are kind of guessing that the investors and so on will never do this area in the next 3, 5, or 7 years. Therefore, let's give money to lots of private companies to do it early. How do you know that we won't do it? I will argue that the reason why, how actually the market should operate there is let company like CityFibre, Netomnia, and Weaver actually build basically their footprint. Because in reality, when we build our footprint and we are capital efficient, then when we become profitable, what we do is we re-inject actually those profits into growing actually the network and fill basically those holes as quickly as we can, which is a natural way to do that. It's very counterintuitive to start with the most expensive stuff using subsidies and taxpayer money to struggle to make any return, to then carry on. You're supposed to start where you're likely to be more profitable, that then you can use those profits to re-inject them basically and keep basically growing as a business. So I think BDUK in that situation is kind of breaking the normal cycle and trying to guess where the gaps are going to be. And they've created lots of issues. And if you look at Barn, for example, Barn had to stop basically in several places because they ended up clashing with BDUK because they moved from voucher to the gigabit project, whereas it looks like a fantastic company addressing actually a lot of needs. And instead of supporting them, basically, they ended up basically breaking quite a few of their rollout. I had lots of issues with BDUK as well because they wanted to give funding to places where I was telling them, I'm going to do it in the next 12 months, so leave that place alone. And it was a fight to actually convince them that they didn't need to intervene because I was going to do it. And this is the thing which seems completely mad, basically, because as a taxpayer, you see your money basically going to places where you're already going to spend private investment to those places. So why doing it? So I think it's been kind of, the problem is the target has been set so high in terms of getting basically the FTTP coverage that they are not letting actually the market operate how it should operate, because I think most of those gaps will be filled over time. The problem is people want it tomorrow rather than being comfortable to wait. And I have a problem with that because, as I say, I don't know the future. So until I know where the gaps are, or until they know where the gaps are, don't gap fund anything.
So I guess what you're saying to the government, the UK government, is save your 5 billion.
That's correct.
Until you know where you actually need it.
Correct. If Openreach is going to do 25 million premises, and within that period, we'll do about 15 million, and Virgin Media will be within that period in the region of 21 million, then you will know where the gaps are. And you will know if we choose to address those gaps with our own investment or if we wait basically for the government to intervene. But they've announced that program when Openreach had, 2 2 to 3 million premises ready for service. The Alt-net had a very small number. Virgin Media had a very small number of fiber. And now you look at 2 to 3 years later after the announcement, the number are significantly higher, and it looks like we are all covering basically as quickly as we can. I don't believe that there is a need to intervene when it's so early basically in the deployment. You first need to let us get to 80 to 90% of what we expect to do, and then sit down and say, okay, are you going to do more or not? Because if you're not, then I might need to do something. But if you are, then just carry on. And so I think all those solutions. I tend to, as an engineer, think that the simple answer tends to be the right answer. And for me, the simple answer there is let it do its thing, and when we know, then we can do something rather than trying to guess. At the moment, there is a very complicated process that we follow where you have to predict basically the future of your rollout, and you get questions all the time about the future of your rollouts, and you say, okay, that's the future. Nobody knows. I might have another £1 billion basically in the next 12 months, or I might not have the cash. Who knows? And therefore, for me, my advice is just wait.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that very controversial view. Last question is, you mentioned a little bit earlier, did I hear this right? You're going to launch an 8 gigabit consumer broadband product next month?
That's correct. So,
my goodness.
Why not? As at the end of the day, we build that network to be able to deliver 8 gigabit basically to the home. So we thought, okay, why not doing it? As everybody right now is making headlines with, we can do 2 gig, I can do 8. So why not doing the headline with 8 gig? Everybody gets excited with 2. So why not doing more? And the routers that we've got for it is so cool. So it's a proper beast. So I like it.
Wow. Okay. And so if someone's on the Netomnia YouFibre footprint who wants to buy 8 gigabits per second of broadband, how much is that going to cost them?
It should be $99.99.
Yeah, I mean, that is an amazing price. 8 gigabits. And you've actually got a router that will push that amount of traffic. My goodness. Jeremy, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for sharing all your views. And thank you very much, everyone, for watching.